Yeah, well, here we are again. It's 6 a.m. and I'm about to do my workout. Uh, it's funny how things do actually unfold. One of the things that Beth and I learned very, very early on was that it's really not easy to help. And whenever I think about help and it not being easy, I remember the words of a man that I met soon after we came out here and started trying to help. We were looking for a wheelchair for this particular girl who had been stricken with a debilitating disease, and her limbs were wasting away and she'd lost the ability to walk. So we were looking for a wheelchair. We put the word out and we got a message in from a man that was helping Larry Malley. And Larry Malley was a former New York cop, and he had set up, I think it's still going, he set up an organization called Medical Matters. I believe that was the title. And what he did was he had been particularly touched by the sight of children who had the hair lip, and there are some very bad cases here in the Philippines where it's gone completely. So it's the cleft palate. So even if you do the lip and it's aesthetically pleasing, it's not always fixed on the inside. And he decided that he was going to change this, and he managed to find a whole team of surgeons who, for a given weekend, 3 or 4 days, would come and they would do these operations on the spot in what really was little more than MASH. If you remember the movie MASH, it showed about how a lot of incredible surgery was done under tents in the most primitive conditions. Well, what would happen was that the hospitals would allow him a room somewhere, and they would set it up as a makeshift operating room, and the doctors would be in lines, 3 or 4 doctors, and they would do the hair lip actually on. If you're really interested and you look through our videos, that shouldn't take you long. There's only about 16,000 of them. If you look, you'll find a video there that we made in this operating room in Dubai, in a hospital in Dubai, and we actually spoke to the doctor who was doing the surgery. Larry Malley used to always smile when he said that he didn't plan it this way. He said, but all of his surgeons were beautiful. They were all beautiful Asian surgeons, Asian women in their sort of mid-late 20s. So you can find that video, which marks my words. Larry Malley walked me around the hospital where they'd allowed cots to be put up, and the mothers of the children that were to be operated over that weekend were there, and we walked around. And he told me that as a New York cop for some 30-something years, he had found now that in retrospect it was easier to put a bad man in jail than it was to help. And he talked about how it brought out the best and the worst you can be. Billy Joel said that, doesn't it? Said it brings out only a woman says she'll bring out the best and the worst you can be. And this is what Larry Malley felt when he went round helping these children who would have been really, they'd have been sentenced to the most awful life with a mouth that couldn't close and a voice that wouldn't quite articulate. So he told me this, and I never forgot. He gave us the wheelchair that we were looking for, and of course wouldn't take any money. And we were to have worked with Larry Malley, finding kids and scheduling them, because what he used to do was he found that all the children that were in this particular condition, they all needed to be prepped before they would receive the surgery. So he would have a given course of nutrients, supplements that the child would go on before they went into surgery. And in among that was for parasites. They take a pill for parasites, and just try to bring up their level of internal health to an acceptable level. So unfortunately it never materialized that we were to help Larry, because he was involved in an accident and he was hit by a tricycle which took his life. I think that his work is still being continued. He helped literally hundreds of children. And my impression from when I walked around with him, around the hospital, we walked around line after line of beds. They would perhaps have as many, if my memory serves me right, as many as 80 children would receive this life-changing surgery to their upper lip. So I remember as we passed each bed, the mother would be with the child, and the gratitude that they showed was wonderful. So that was a message that was given to me, and I'm actually here now, having just done a video about reading Proverbs. Much of the wisdom, such as it is, that I have has come from reading books. Just like I've been reading the Bible this morning. And I've read much of what I've learned is an education that I've cobbled together from leaving school, not a very good scholar even then, at the age of 15. So I left St. Wilfrid's Roman Catholic school at the age of 15 and happy to be gone and ignorant of how much I didn't know. Well, since then, things that have come as very important lessons were like Larry Malley's, that it was more difficult to help someone than to put a bad guy in prison, in his work as a cop, of course. Since then, many things have been told to me that have really stuck. You know, Beth and I started to help, and we didn't think of it in a grand way. We thought of it as, just the two of us trying to find the resources where we could change somebody's life. And it happened, first off, the first one was when we went to a service that was being held in a born-again Christian grassroots church that wasn't even complete, didn't have any windows, and some of the walls were not there. And the place where a grand opening front door would go was in the planning, but had still not happened. But I remember thinking that the people there were in worship and they were so incredibly happy. They sang and danced in the service. And I remember going out because I actually was so touched emotionally. I thought I was going to make a fool of myself. So I went out and we made a video, and in that video I can remember one of the very, very first videos that we made. I can remember saying that somebody could help this little congregation out in among the coconuts, and in a partially completed wreck of a church. And indeed, sure enough, a lot of generous people stepped up, and in 2 weeks, in less than 2 weeks, it may have been less than one, we were able to go back to that little church and give them 25,000 pesos to help towards the completion of that church. It was an incredibly rewarding moment. And that was achieved by a message, by giving a message that touched someone and changed their lives. Because if you tell a human interest story to someone and they step up and decide to help, they've responded to your message, because that message has contained something that was real to them. And when we are talking to people, we may just be talking about personal experience, like I'm talking to you now about a personal experience, which touched me so much that I felt that maybe someone, and I just made a plea, and I remember saying, surely someone can help these people. They don't even have Bibles. I think that was instrumental in me meeting my friend Roger and Bing, and I think that they later stepped up and have since stepped up many times in sending us Bibles. Or not, they don't send the Bibles, they send the money to buy the Bibles, or they get in touch in Tagbilaran, they get in touch with the bookstore there, modest though it is, and they paid for all of asked the price of the Bibles. How much will it cost me to buy 10 Bibles or 20 Bibles? And then they pay it with their credit card, and we would go along there and pick up the Bibles and distribute them to those people. In that particular case, to that little church out in the coconuts in Ubay. Ubay is about an hour drive away from where we live. So there was a message, something that I said because I'd been touched by the message that I received from those people as they sang and danced during their worship. And I was touched there. So important are the words, the messages and everything. They're important because they connect. Now, a lot of people have quoted from the Bible and said correctly from the Bible that if you are going to do your good deeds, you should do it quietly and walk away unknown. Now, what they don't quote in that quote from the Bible, what they don't say is that it says, rather than boast about what you have done. So if you make some kind of gift, good deed, it may be a touch on the shoulder, that if you do this, then don't seek to have a great acknowledgement, which we always say that we're not the heroes, that the people who give and empowered us to do what we do are the heroes. So many of the people would like their name, Christian name, to be mentioned when it's said what we've done, which we don't consider boasting. And we don't boast about what we do ourselves, because we are nothing without the help of those who step up and empowered us to do what we do. So the quote is half right and half wrong. Thank you for listening to my waffling on. Time to do some action.